Hello, I'm Erin Marcus, founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, and I want to welcome you to Ready Yet? If all you needed was a step-by-step plan of what to do, you could buy a book on how to succeed and you would be all set. But here's the rub. You'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. The Ready Yet podcast is dedicated to those who are ready to become the person who succeeds, ready to become the person who steps into more, and ready to become the best version of themselves. In the I'm Ready interview series, join me for inspiring conversations with people who figured out who they needed to be in order to achieve their dreams, and were brave enough to be that person. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm so freaking excited today because we've been trying to do this for a while.
A long time.
I got the dates wrong, and then we all showed up in sweatpants, and I didn't know what was going on. But like, seriously, I'm so excited to have my friend Barbara Wichman here today because I just love your story and your journey and what you're doing and how you just go out there and do it. And I think people will really glean a lot from what we can share with them. You and I met, I don't even remember how we officially met because we kind of met, I want to say it was like in 3 different places.
Exactly.
Like we were so meant to be together that we came across each other at least 3 different times in the span of a week. It's like, do this with me, do that with me. We share the whole animal rescue love of things underneath it all. So before we get started, why don't you give everybody a more official introduction to who you are and what it is that you do?
Okay. Well, thanks you, Erin. And Erin, you talked about like being friends, and you're someone that I look at and just have so much respect for everything that you've done as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why we connect, is because we both have that desire to just go out and get it done.
Yes.
And not everyone has that. They don't have that just go get it grit. So for me, it's knowing you has been such a positive experience, and it's been a joy. And we actually had lunch, I think, right before COVID hit. It was like the month before COVID hit.
Because we didn't have masks on and we got to meet in person. I was thinking about that as well.
Yeah. And then we had planned on getting together more after that, and then COVID hit. So, but it's been a pleasure and a joy to, be on the journey with you. I mean, we've been on these parallel journeys, and we've just watched each other grow. So it's been a tremendous experience. So and thank you for having me. I mean, really, I appreciate sharing my story. And so what do I do? People always ask me, what do you do? I don't get what you do. Well, I create leaders and organizations, and I develop them so that they have the critical competencies and capabilities that they require to exceed their business goals and become industry leaders. I mean, that's really what I do. And I do this through, whether it be interviews or assessments or team meetings or, process review. But on top of that, I also am a career coach. And I'll tell you, there's one thing that just drives me insane is people go like, oh, I thought you were organization and leadership development. You do career coaching. That's like so different. And I always say, if you don't get it, then get out of the business, because career coaching is such a part of organization and leadership development. So, that's one of the things that I get called in to do often is career coaching. It's not something I had hung out my shingle to do, but it's something I get called on because I've been doing it for so long. And it's been really important for people through the pandemic because they've lost their jobs and become nervous and scared, to be there to help folks. But also been working with a lot of organizations this entire time to get the leadership right, get their, structure right, and do some discovery on what's really happening in the organization. So that's really what I do. People say like, who's your ideal client? Well, I work with organizations, but I also work with individuals, right?
Right. Because that's what people miss all the time. It's made up of individuals. The people don't go away just because they're put together.
And then, I also, a career coaching is often about individuals, right? And then you have that organization and leadership development piece, which is more about the organization and the larger team. So I work with both, but typically my client is someone who's in a corporate or some type of larger environment, right? I don't typically work with the solopreneur, although I've done some business development things like that. That's not my gig, right? That's, I can do it, but that's not where I like love to spend my time. I love to help friends, but I love to do what I do. Like I am blessed because I've spent the last 30 years in a profession that I love, and not everyone can say that.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and as you're introducing what you do, one of the things that I think would help my audience, who are often more a solopreneur,
Yep.
and it's also what I think helped me coming out of corporate. And there's all sorts of things I will tell you. Coming from corporate into entrepreneurship will just freaking kill you.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
there's also things that help immensely. The fact that I've always treated my business as a business.
Right. Yeah.
The fact that I knew from my corporate experience that you hire people who are professionals at each thing that they do instead of trying to do it all yourself. And and from your perspective on leadership, I imagine that there's a lot a solopreneur could learn from being a leader.
Yeah.
One of the ways I describe it, and I hear you talk about this too, don't show up as a vendor, show up as a thought leader.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I know though that you left a corporate job
Yep.
in order to do this for yourself. So what's interesting to me is while your client might not, for the most part, be the solopreneur, it has been your journey.
It is my journey. It's been an interesting journey.
So I'll ask you my first favorite question about that. Did you jump off the cliff or were you pushed?
I jumped off the cliff a couple times, but I wouldn't even call it jumping off the cliff. For me, it was like stepping out and spreading my wings. Really. Nice. So being in corporate America, and let me tell you, I had a great career in corporate America, and I look upon it fondly. Granted, there were moments that made me want to pull my hair out, and there's times when I was stressed out like everyone else. But in honesty, I look back, and everything that I've done has developed my skills and capabilities and competencies for what I do today.
Absolutely. But, and I could never do what I do if I wouldn't have had that experience.
Yeah, there's no way. Exactly. And that's why, I kind of, you kind of look at people and say, I was a kindergarten teacher and I'm a career coach, and you have to really evaluate, so one of the things that I've learned is you really have to evaluate what you do as a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, small business. And it has to be within your bailiwick, right? Because the one thing that you and I both know is what we do is we impact people's lives every day. Like we make decisions, whether it's an individual coaching or whether it's a recommendation that you remove a leader or add a leader, we impact people's jobs. And I bring all of that from my corporate experience to my business today. So that's the one thing I would say has been like fantastic. That's been a great, so I wouldn't call it a jumping off the cliff. I'd be like, you know what? I've been in corporate for a long time, and I always say this, and you may have heard me say this. You have the four walls, right? When you walk into an organization, virtual or not, you have the four walls. And those four walls contain people who will tell you what you can and cannot say and what you're trying to drive, what you can't drive. And eventually, after being a good corporate citizen, you're like this. I'm like, I can't take it anymore. My wings got to go, right? So for me to step out, it was really important for me. So I'm out here now and I'm saying all the things that I want to say. And I'm talking about soul and leadership and mindfulness and, all this stuff. But it's interesting. The pandemic has brought all of those conversations to life now.
In places where nobody talked about that.
You bet it. It used to be, leave your personal life at the door. Don't bring it in here. And now we're saying your personal life is a part of your work life.
And now there's nothing short of it. Right. Now there's nothing short of a miracle that there's not a cat on this podcast. Right.
Yeah. Well, and my dog's been walking back and forth, and you might hear her jingling over things, but it is what it is, right? And that's just kind of it. And we've come to accept that kind of casual nature of what we do now, but still driving the business. But I'll tell you, also stepping into the entrepreneurial world, it is a challenge. And here's some lessons that I've learned that I would tell any person who's stepping into their own business right now. number one, as you said, there are times when you realize that you have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. One of the things that I did is I tried too many times, and I'm a quick learner, but still it takes time, right? And every time you take time, it pushes your launches back, it pushes your success
And you
back.
can't be great at everything.
No.
It's just the way your brain works. It's not like a judgment.
Right.
My brain doesn't work certain ways.
Right. And if you're a perfectionist, it's even worse, because being great to me is like 80% is pretty good. I don't need to be 110% because that's not what everyone needs, right? That's just not where
It
it's
just
at.
stops everything.
Yeah. So I think a couple things of, having to get structure in my day and holding myself to structure, right? And having to get the right people in place. But I think the other thing is from a mindset shift. I used to be able to pick up the phone and go, hey, marketing team, I need blah, 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 blah. Right. And now you're like, well, I've never really done that. But
I had my first post-corporate meltdown when the printer wouldn't print, and I had the realization I had nobody to call.
There's no one to call. Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing I found, as an entrepreneur, that's been really incredibly important for me is to surround myself with people like you. Like if I surround myself with people like you, who, like, if I had to pick up the phone and make a phone call and go, geez, like I'm just like frustrated right now, or, things just aren't working. But, there's caution around that too, because there's going to be people around you who say the words, but don't do the work. And you have to be careful about how you spend your time, because they will take a lot of your time and you're helping.
Well, they think they're gonna. Well, and a lot of people think they're being kind to you by helping you stay safe, meaning helping you stay exactly where you were
in your framework,
in your little box that you impose with you out of the office.
Yeah. I talk about the self-imposed framework. And when we were at the conference, one of the things I said was, we all have this framework which we built, and we think it has walls. But the bottom line is there are no walls, but we create the walls, and other people help you create those walls. So you have to be really careful about listening to people and understand that they have great intentions, but they may be thinking this big and you're thinking this big.
And I think that's the big, it's real easy to say, to identify when somebody is toxic.
Yes.
But it's more insidious when they're a great human being that you love.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's good friends and there's good people to connect with from a business perspective.
Right. And it's more difficult to recognize the really nice, cool person who loves you.
Yes.
But isn't the right person to support you for your business effort.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, another thing I would say on top of that is, I mentioned it earlier, and everyone has good intentions and everyone believes that they have great capabilities. But again, just from like a marketing standpoint, there's people that I talk to who believe themselves, and they do help people who don't know anything about marketing. But even coming from the experience that I had, I know enough about marketing to be really dangerous. So the conversations are way here, and I need the conversations to be way up here. So I've had to be really careful and very observant, and ask lots and lots of questions, and be willing to walk away.
Be willing to walk away, and also under the observant, recognize when I'm settling.
Yes. Yes. Like, absolutely.
When am I settling for someone who is very nice and could do some work because they're following my lead, and you and I have the same problem. It's just, I'm naturally in charge of stuff. So I'm comfortable in that role. So it doesn't faze me to hire somebody I have to lead. However, it won't help me grow.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like I have this amazing virtual assistant, and she reads my mind, right? And she'll check with me, and I'm glad she checks with me, but she reads my mind and just gets stuck. Like I look at it and she's like, oh my God, she got all that done. That's what you need. You need someone to be there every day for you. And it doesn't have to be a full-time person. It doesn't have to be a direct employee, but the people that you surround yourself with have to be responsive. And here's the other thing that you probably have maybe you have the same issue that I have, is like I have high expectations for stuff getting done right. and when it's not done right, I get a little crazy. And if it's not done right, and like the first time we'll talk about it, but the third or fourth time, I get really crazy. And even like working with help desk from, software providers, like I'm going to get back to you in 24 hours. Wait a minute. If it's 24 hours, I can't work with you because I got stuff I got to get done.
And I think that for me is the perfectionism isn't as bad as the quickness.
Right.
And that is something about growing a business. I listened to, I remember the days where I attended meetings that were set up in order to have meetings to decide if we were eventually going to have a meeting to see if we were going to try something different to a beta group. And now it's like, I have an idea and 48 hours later, it's out in the market to see if anybody even wants it before I put in time and effort. It's, can you keep up? And I'm not saying everyone has to run like their hair's on fire.
No.
But for solopreneurs, I think one of the most dangerous traits is that indecision.
Waiting. Waiting. Yep. The waiting. Waiting to see if it's really the right thing, waiting to see if it's really something you should do, waiting for a lot of feedback. And the bottom line, you should throw it out there. Some of the best ideas have just been thrown out there and they've like taken off.
Because I have no feedback while I'm waiting. I have no feedback while I'm sitting by myself with my cat, as attentive as she is. It's, she doesn't have good business ideas, but I have to talk to other human beings and I have to put things out there to see if anyone, and here's the thing that we both know, I've got to let the failures fail.
Right.
In order to find the things that work.
Yep. Exactly. And the sooner the better. Get it done. Get it done and get out of the way. And don't invest all that money into it. And then get
I will tell you, Mike, my boyfriend, he does tease me. He goes, it's so good you've got that fail faster down. When do we get to fail cheaper?
How do we fail less?
How do we fail cheaper?
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I know I really enjoy having conversations about who you need to be in order to reach new heights. As founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, I work with my clients at the intersection where what they need to do to succeed meets who they need to be to do it. If you would like to have a conversation about your business, please reach out to me at erin@conqueryourbusiness.com.
Yeah, I get it. There's investment. I mean, excuse me. And I think the other thing that I will say, one of the biggest challenges for me, we've talked about how we can pick up the phone and call people, is this technology, right? That's been a huge, huge thing for me. Like if you saw me right now, you'd see dual screens, 2 computers, an ATEM, a Stream Deck, my teleprompter, my 2 cameras, you'd see it all set up, right?
Right.
But it has taken time to get there. And I'm only probably using 25% of the capability of everything that's here right now. But just getting to the point of getting it set up was huge, right? Because these are things, and I always thank you, Lord Jesus, that I can learn quickly, right? Thank you, God, for letting me be someone who can look at it, figure out, find the right people, ask the questions, and then go ahead and do it. Yeah. But that's been a big learning curve too. And I think even now in the virtual environment, you got to get technology down. When's the last time you've been on a Zoom call and they still don't know how to really act on Zoom? I mean, come on. At this point in time, you got to get it down. And
I tell people, because I have some people in my world who are a little older, they don't really want to do big, huge investments anymore in their businesses. They're literally in their upper 70s.
Yep.
They're amazing. They're so much fun. But we do have those conversations. And I don't even think you have to be older to have these feelings of, remember when it was XYZ. And I tell them, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that wasn't better, but you have a choice to make. You can be nostalgic and angry, or you can be happy and grow your business.
Well, exactly. And I don't know, for me, again, just because of the virtue of the work that I did, I led global teams for the last 20 years. Right. So I've had virtual teams for the last 20 years and we used WebEx and we used these things when we were so happy we could finally look at each other. Right. And
remember when GoToMeeting was invented?
Oh my gosh. I hate GoToMeeting. I love GoToMeeting people. I love GoToMeeting. But so now, but the thing is, we've always been doing it. but maybe you've been the one that just came up and showed up and sat in the room, but now you've got to figure it out on your own. So to avoid that, it just doesn't make sense anymore. I mean,
And
it just,
stop shooting yourself in the foot by
yeah,
labeling yourself somebody who can't do it.
yeah, that is it. Oh my gosh, you nailed it. If I hear that one more time, like I'll talk to someone, they'll go like, well, I just can't do that. Like, what do you mean you can't do that? Right? If I had like a gun pointing at you right now, would you do it? Well, yeah. Well,
Figure
then
it
you can't
out.
do it.
Instead of,
do it.
my favorite question is, how easy am I willing to allow this to be?
Yeah.
So, and that's about me. That has nothing to do with anything external.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
100% back reflection at myself
Yeah.
about what am I putting in the way? What am I, my new word, what am I declaring?
Yes.
What am I putting in the way of my own ability to take another step? So I have another question for you.
Yep.
Where did your willingness to take risks? Because that's another thing. That's another thing that one of my friends once said to me, wow, you really like it out there on the thin branches.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about it because
So fun, isn't it?
right. I mean, to me, it's fun. And I've come to learn I'm weird. So it serves me.
Yeah.
But where did your willingness to take risks come from?
I think from a different, so first of all, you talked about like you being weird, like, and frankly, I have fought it all my life, but I'm different. Like I'm just weird. Am I different? I think differently. And that's just the bottom line, but that's my gift, right? And I've learned that as a gift. It's not a failure. Just because you don't understand me or the norm doesn't understand me doesn't mean that I'm bad. It just means I'm different. And that's how when you take that and you can drive that in your business, that's when it really helps. That's when it's successful, right? And when you're corporations, it closes you down.
Yeah.
So from a risk standpoint, there's a couple different things I'll tell you. First of all, I'm kind of an adventurous kind of person, right? So I will tell you, I live by a motto. Life should be an adventure, and no one ever had an adventure just sitting on the couch, right? Yep. So it's about getting up and doing stuff. I am the one who, I was lucky. Growing up, I grew up in a small town. And I would get up as, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I would take a bike and I'd bike all through the countryside. Like you would never do it now because it's too freaky. But, my mom, I'd be like, bye mom. And I'd be gone for hours.
We did the same thing in downtown Chicago, which you would never do now either.
Right,
we were 10, 12 years old going downtown by ourselves. But yes, exactly.
Part of that was just being out there by myself, realizing that, not worrying about anything and realizing that it's okay. Right? It's okay. You're fine. If you're thirsty, you kind of stop and you knock on a farmer's door and go, can I have a glass of water? And then you kind of, those things didn't bother you.
We didn't do that.
And then, I've been things like, I'm a huge hiker. So I used to hike up the rocks and we'd go canoeing and, so you're just hiking, like always doing different things and traveling to unique places. Like I've been to Brazil a couple of times. I've been to Nepal. I've been to some interesting places that are not normal to how I live. That stretch that just, I've always been curious about other cultures. So to step in those cultures and go, okay, show me, right. I think has helped me not be so afraid of taking a risk. But the other thing that I'll say is, in my experience, I'll tell you, like when I started out in corporate America, right? So I step into my first real true corporate job was Sears Roebuck and Company when it was Sears Roebuck and Company. Wow. And so I step in the door, and I'm on the ground floor with 5 people, and we are developing a corporate university that's going to be serving over 350,000 people, right? So it's a huge deal, right? Yeah. And like they just decided in the end of November to do it, and I joined January 1, right? So on the ground floor. So you kind of just jump in and having a great leader kind of say, do this, do that. And you're like, good. And all of a sudden they start sending me to meetings. And all of a sudden I'm sitting at a meeting with a gentleman who's running Sears' largest business. And it's a $45 billion business.
I had that too, where you're like, yep. I'm in over my head. How did
I didn't think I was over my head because I took because I'd been doing such great, having a great time. I took my notebook, I sat down and I said, hello, I'm here to like help you guys need like some training, like, and he was great, right? And I just asked questions because I just wanted to know because I'm curious. And I get up and I said, I won't say his real name, but I said, goodbye, Mr. Smith. And he said, Barbara, you call me Bob. So I went downstairs and my manager's like, how did it go? How did it go? And I'm like, it went great. I said, he told me to call him Bob. He said, he did what? I said, he told me to call him Bob. He said, you're one of like 3 people in the organization he allows to call Bob. And I realized at that moment that it's not about being so scared walking in the door, but it's just walking in and being curious. Like curiosity is the thing that keeps me going all the time. And I think when you're curious, risk becomes like, nah.
It's not a risk. It's searching for information. And it's so interesting because I didn't know that story about you. And I had such a similar situation. I was I was like at 30 at the time. So it was a new role for me, but I was coming in the middle to upper management at that point. But I had the same thing where I never felt stupid for not knowing something that there was no way for me to have known. And I would go to these meetings with people in, president of Prudential Insurance, for example, way above anything I had ever had exposure to. And I would take notes. And when we would leave, because I wasn't going to interrupt the meeting, but when we would leave, I would sit with my boss and ask all the questions. What was this? What was this? What was this? Why did they say this? What is he referring? And he would just answer them. And I think having that mentorship, so there's a few things that you're talking about. One, that curiosity for information, absolutely. But the other piece is like when you're talking about biking through the countryside, you have developed a knowledge that you can take care of yourself.
Yeah, confidence, right? I'm confident that I can take care of myself, and
regardless of what happens.
Regardless, I'm going to figure it out. I mean, I will survive, but I will survive, right? And and from a corporate America perspective, having those initial conversations and experiences where, and it wasn't just so much, it wasn't really for me, it wasn't a mentorship at the time, but I had leaders who just believed in me and said, you can go take care of it. And I was too green behind the ears to realize what I was stepping into. But when I got there, I'm like, they believe in me, so I believe in me. And then all of a sudden, and this has been a pattern, this was a pattern in my corporate life, I got every project. They're like, we can't get this done. And I'd be like, there's no way we can get this done. I'm like, well, give it to me, I'll do it.
Let me see.
And they'd give it to me. And then I'd get all done. They're like, there's no way. I didn't think you could do it. Like, I didn't think, because if you just think like I can do it, that's all there is to it.
It's self-definition. What are you declaring? What are you telling yourself? It's such a similar experience for me. I used to have my role, I had no department. I was the person who moved from department to department to get things done that needed to get done. And when you don't spend all your time thinking about what could go wrong and you're just like, this is really interesting, let me figure it out.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's days where I was shaken. Like there's days when I got a little shaken, but here's the difference. And this is one of the things, one of the things I've done like in the last 30 years, I've developed high potentials. And there's one characteristic of high potentials within organizations that you always look for. It's resilience.
Yeah.
So for me, like I said, there's things that have shaken me up. But it's the ability to bounce back immediately. Okay, it's going to hang with it for the day. I'll get up the next morning. Okay, what am I going to do now? Like, what am I going to do?
That's my favorite, right? That's one of my favorite quotes. I think is it a Churchill quote is, success is the ability to go from failure to failure with no lack of enthusiasm.
Yeah. Like, let's just go. Like, it's not the end of the world. There's a great movie and I can't think of the name right now, but it's the guys go on these they're on a bachelor party. And first they go to New York and then they go to like Hong Kong, but these bachelor stories. And this guy gets locked up in an ice cooler and he jumps out because he's been pissed off. And his guys look at him and go like, he's like, I'm cold. I'm so cold. And he's like, but did you die?
Did you die?
Like, you didn't die. So you're fine. Like, so stop complaining about it. And I think that's kind of it. Like, I don't hang around with people who complain a lot.
Right. And knowing that every situation is temporary. That every situation, even the highs are temporary. So let's learn to ride the wave, take advantage of the ebb and flow. Don't beat ourselves up on the downside and don't get arrogant and dismissive when you're on the high side. And because you see that a lot also, people get some success I have right now, I can't tell you how I have a lot of realtors as clients.
Yep.
And it's very interesting the difference. I've had some realtors step up and say, I'm really, really, really busy. We have to make sure this lasts. And I've
Yep.
had other realtors say, I'm too busy now to focus on this, which I get. I totally get it.
Yep.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
But if you don't focus on it now,
Yep.
you won't be ready for when it goes back down.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth. And I'll tell you, there's, you mentioned like, nothing's final, right? There's only one thing that's final, and it's death. And people are like, you're always doing this and doing that. Like, when are you just going to retire? I'm like, first of all, why would I retire when I love what I'm doing? And number two, I'll sleep when I die. And until then, I'm going to do all the things that I love to do. I don't do this because I've got someone like with a stick poking me. I do this because I love what I do. And that's the thing I would tell any entrepreneur. Like, if you don't love it, get out. But if you love it, it will just be like natural. Like, you can't, I'm an author, right? So I've got one of my journals is called Push Up the Sun. And that title came from a night I was laying in bed, and I'm just like, I'm laying there, I'm like, I want to do this, but I know if I don't sleep, I can't get it done.
Can't do any of it.
Right. So I got on Facebook, and I'm like, do any of you like ever like go to bed and just wish you could close your eyes for like 8 minutes, and then you wake up and you go, right? Just like 6, 7, 8 minutes. And then you're like refreshed and go. And someone came back and they said, my friend calls that pushing up the sun. And I'm like, that's exactly what it is. Like, every day for me, I want to push up the sun. And that doesn't mean getting up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and watching. It means that whatever time you go to bed, you are so excited about what you're going to do the next day that you can't wait for the day to come. It's so important. If you can't do that as an entrepreneur, then you should be an entrepreneur.
I absolutely agree with you, because there's things that are hard, and it's not putting the plan together. I tell people all the time, I can make you a business plan. I can put together a marketing plan. I'm great at messaging. That will be the easy part. It's the internal work to keep to making it all happen. And it's too hard to face some of that if you're not just massively pumped up.
Yep. And it does not be perfect. I mean, you may make a mistake, but you can just adjust, right? I mean, I was having trouble getting a campaign out this morning. I was getting pissed off at, is that working? And then all of a sudden I'm like, finally look at it and go, okay, I just need to adjust this one thing. And also it all went, right? But those are just things they just move on then, right? But some people really hang on these things. They're like, okay, I'm done. Let's just go on. I had a little mini blow up. I'm good now. I'm good.
And the other thing is it's a fundamental trait. You either believe the universe is for you, or you believe it's against you.
Yeah.
There is kind of not really a middle ground on that one.
It's a theory and concept of abundance. And, people think there's finite money, there's finite wealth, and there's finite success. There's not finite anything. The difference is those people, I believe, like you and myself and a lot of people that we know, we just don't even worry about it. We're like, there's enough to go around for everyone, and I want it more than you do. So I'm going to go after it. If you want to sit back and worry about it, you do that, but I'll take your part. I'll take your portion too if you don't want it.
Right? And I tell everybody, they think I'm crazy, but kind of like the whole push up the sun thing. Most of what I do is to entertain myself.
Yeah.
You are so welcome to come along.
Yep.
But it's happening either way.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I'm putting on a really kind of interesting event, and I threw out the invitation this morning, and people are responding. Are like, this is really cool. I'm so excited. And I'm like, that's the thing. Like, I'm excited about it, and now they're excited about it. And like you said, like, if you're not excited about it, then don't do it.
Then don't do it, because the energy is catching either way.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us more, because so you mentioned your one book, Pushing Up the Sun.
Push Up the Sun. Mm-hmm. Push Up the Sun. Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to continue this conversation with you, because they absolutely should continue this conversation with you.
Oh, thank you.
Like, what is the best way to get a hold of you? How else can people find you? And
so the best way to get a hold of me is typically from my email, which is barbara@barbarawichman.com. Or if you forget that, you go to my website, which is barbarawichman.com, and it's contact me, and then all that stuff comes to me. But feel free to email me. I mean, honestly, I respond quickly, and I love hearing from people. So, I'm fortunate, and you probably are the same way. I'm fortunate because a lot of my work is referrals, and
Mhm.
I get emails and phone calls out of the blue. I'm like, "Hi, are you Barbara?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, so and so told me to call you. I'm like, "Okay, great. What's up?"
Who
Right?
are you? What do you need?
Yeah,
How can I help you?
yeah. What's up? So feel free to reach out at any time. Yeah,
Awesome. Because I know you have so much to share. And I also know that you very freely share it. The
yep,
more the
yep.
merrier.
Yes. So I'll tell you, can I tell you something that's coming up,
Yes,
which
yes,
I'm
yes,
excited
yes.
about? So in the next week or two, I'm launching, um, it's called 52 Weeks of Career. I'm not sure what the title's going to be, but I'm going to do and it's one of these freebies, right? So if you sign up, it's going to be 52 weeks of career tips, and not just
Nice.
looking for a job, but if you're in a job and you're starting a job, if you're looking to move up the ladder. So 52 weeks. So I'm real excited about that. And then I'm also launching the 52 weeks on leadership tips. So I'm excited about that as well. So those things, like you said, the freebies, those are the things that I'm going to have people sign up for so that they can get everything that I've got. Like I put it all out there like you do, like
Yeah.
just put it out there and share it. And they can sign up and get all that stuff for free.
I love that 52 weeks of leadership tips because I think
Yeah.
people, there's so much to glean from that to becoming an entrepreneur. And I think too many
Yes.
solopreneurs don't realize that leadership will serve them well. You think
Absolutely.
because you're just sitting there by yourself that you don't need to worry about leadership, but so much of what makes you a great leader will help you be a great entrepreneur.
Yeah, there's the two levels, right? You have to be a manager and a leader. You have to manage the process, and you have to lead yourself into the future. And oftentimes, because if you've been in an environment where you work with someone, you rely on others to help do that or do that for you, and now you're the one to do that.
Now you're the one to do it. That's one of the things I said. I had a very, very fancy, very autonomous job role in my last corporate job.
Yeah.
And bottom line is I was part of a process. The work showed up. I knew what to do with it. It went on its way.
Right.
And when you are an entrepreneur, that goes away.
Yeah, you got to find your own process and fill it yourself.
And that was a rude awakening for myself and for many of my clients who take that journey as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending all this time with me. I think, you just have such amazing insights to share with your knowledge of what you do, but also your journey and what you've been through. And so I really thank you so much for sharing it with me.
Well, Erin, thanks for having me. Like I said, it's been a pleasure to be on the journey with you. Even though we're not doing the same things, we've been parallel kind of going down this road together, and you see me do stuff and I see you do stuff, and you're like, yeah, there we go. And it's kind of like, yeah.
There's someone out there going for it. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to leave some people in the dust, but that's okay because we know we're looking forward. So it's
push even more up with us. So
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
And then we'll have lunch. Now that things are settling down, we'll go back to have lunch.
In person. It'll have to be a fancy lunch.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Ready Yet podcast. I get so motivated by the amazing accomplishments of the remarkable people I meet, and I'm excited to be able to share some of their stories with you. You can find more episodes of Ready Yet at your favorite source for podcasts or at conqueryourbusiness.com. And if you've already decided that you are ready to become the person you need to be to achieve your big goals, feel free to reach out to find out how I can support you in your efforts. Or check out the Work with Erin page on the Conquer Your Business website. I also invite you to share this podcast with anyone you know who loves to learn and be inspired. And if you're so inclined, I'd be absolutely grateful for any reviews you'd like to share as well. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Erin Marcus, hopefully inspiring and helping you to go conquer your big dreams.